Hello everyone. I'd like to take a second to show you how to install the latest version of the Java JDK in the Eclipse IDE on Linux. There are versions of both of these available in the Ubuntu repositories, but you should not use them. The Java Development Kit is an open source equivalent to the current JDK called the OpenJDK, and it's based on a free interpretation of Java called ICE-T. The problem with that is that you can write source code for Java using the OpenJDK, but when you compile the source code with the OpenJDK, the resulting bytecode is not Java compatible, so it won't work. As for the Eclipse IDE, the version available in the Ubuntu repositories is version 3.7, which is very old, and it has a bug in it that causes it to crash immediately on Ubuntu. As we discussed in class, Java has its own license agreement, so it can't be distributed with the operating system and has to be installed by a third-party repository. The current version of Java is Java7, which is owned by Oracle, as opposed to Sun Microsystems as it was in the past. To add the repo and to install the latest JDK, you need to enter the following commands into a terminal. I'll fire that up right here. Sudo add-apt-repository ppa web update team/Java. It'll ask you for your sudo password. Made a typo there. Hit enter when it asks you to, and it's going to add the GPG key right here. That's this long string of letters and numbers. And then you have to update your package cache and then install it. So you do that by sudo apt-get update && sudo apt-get install Oracle Java7 installer, and I like to add -y at the end because that adds the yes argument to it. It won't ask me to confirm anything, it'll just install it. So while it's doing that thing, we are going to go online and grab the Eclipse IDE. Wait for that to load up. Before we do that, actually, the next thing we need to determine is whether or not we're running a 32-bit or 64-bit kernel. If you're not sure, you can check by entering the command uname-a in the terminal. And what that'll do is it'll spit out a long line of information, and that tells you everything you need to know about your kernel. What you're looking for is these lines at the end. It'll tell you what architecture your kernel is. It's x86-64, which means it's 64-bit. If it says i386 or PAE, you don't need to worry about it. But if you're using x86-64, then you need to install the 32-bit linked libraries. And if you need to install those like I do, you need to enter the command sudo apt-get install ia32-libs. And I already installed it, but if you need to install it, it'll go ahead and do that thing. So now you need to open up your browser and navigate to www.eclipse.org. I cannot type today. And we're going to go to downloads. As we discussed in class, what you need is this, the Eclipse Classic 4.2 IDE. Now, you can download either the 32-bit or the 64-bit depending on what you need, but since it is 182 megabytes, I would recommend that you go to Other Downloads and you go to SDK Torrents and you download it as a .torrent file. So we'll save that, and that should save to my Downloads folder, and we'll go there in a second. Just open up my file manager. I'm going to go to downloads, and here's that torrent file we just downloaded. Now on regular Ubuntu, you're probably going to be using Transmission, or you can use Deluge. Right now I'm using KTorrent because that's just what comes with Ubuntu. It doesn't really matter which desktop environment you're using. All of this should transfer over from one to the other. So you add the torrent, and while that's downloading, you just have to wait. Take a second and talk about what we just did. That is downloading to my home directory. Some torrent clients will download to .downloads. You just got to figure out where it's at. Now, once it downloads, we're going to need to extract it, and then technically you could run it from your home directory, but I'm not a big fan of keeping anything like software in my home directory. There's too much risk of accidentally overwriting it or deleting it or breaking a configuration file or something. So I like to move it somewhere safe. Typically where I'll put things like this, I'll put them in user share. I'll show you how to do that once it's done downloading. Alright, now that it's done downloading, we need to extract this file. Now, as you can see, it's what's called a tar.gz file. Now, if you're not familiar with Linux, that's going to be something new. A tar is just a Linux archive, and gz or .bz indicate whether it's zipped up using the gzip or bzip algorithm. There's merits to either one, but typically things are going to be tar.gz. Now, to extract it, you can either do it via the GUI and right-click it and say extract. I'll show you how to do it using the terminal because it's a handy trick to have. In your home directory, you're going to find it, and it's this file right here. So you can copy that so you don't have to paste it. You're going to say tar tac xvzf, and then paste the name of the file, and it'll go through and extract everything and show you what it's doing while it does it. As you can see, it just created the Eclipse folder. Now you can actually go in there, cd into Eclipse, and then execute the Eclipse IDE. There you go. But like I said, I don't like to keep software in my home directory, so we're going to move that to user share. Sudo cp-vr home, your username, Eclipse. We're going to move that to user share. Now you got to put this slash at the end. Otherwise, it's going to just copy the contents of the Eclipse file into user share, which is not what you want. Alright, and once it's done doing that, we can actually go into our home directory and erase the Eclipse folder. Just go ahead and throw that in the trash. We'll CD back into our home directory. Now, to be able to execute it via the command line, what we need to do is add user share Eclipse to the path, and I'll show you how to do that. Go sudo nano etc. row file, And what that is the bash profile or the shell profile configuration file for all users except for root on your system. What you're going to do is you're going to add these two lines at the end. It's going to say path, and you're going to tell what the variable for path is, user share Eclipse, and then export path. You're going to hit Control O, and then Control X to save and close it. Now, once you do that, you're going to have to reboot, but since I already did it, I'm pretty sure it's going to work. Should be able to just type in Eclipse and it'll start up the IDE. If it doesn't, then reboot. Now, the thing is, if you're running it in a terminal, as soon as you close the terminal, it closes the IDE as well. So you can hit Alt F2 and execute it this way. Now, the last thing that you probably want to do, like me, is you're going to want an icon that you can click on to launch it. So I already created what is going to become what's called a desktop file. And you're just going to take this information that I added in here, and you're going to save it as eclipse.desktop. What that does is it tells it the name of the application, what kind of program it is, what action it's going to take when it executes, and whether or not it's going to open in a terminal. Now, this right here is important because unless you tell it what icon to look for in user share icons, it's just going to show up with a white rectangle. So what we're going to do is we are going to find an icon to use. Eclipse already ships with some icons, so we'll go to where we have the Eclipse IDE, user share Eclipse, right? And then we're going to find name, and we're going to look for a PNG file. And it finds a whole bunch of them. What we're going to look for is something that says Eclipse some pixel size .png right there, and it tells us that the dot stands for whatever the working directory is, and then it's in plugins org Eclipse, tells us what version it is, and then the name of the file. So we're going to copy this file right here to user share icons. So here's what we're going to do. Sudo cp-vr, we're going to say user share Eclipse, because the terminal can't really work with relatives like this. It has to use absolute paths when you're copying things. So you're going to paste that, make sure you get rid of that period. Alright, and we're copying that Eclipse 256.png to user share icons. Now the thing is, it's going to be looking for an icon called Eclipse, not Eclipse 256. So I'm going to copy that to user share icons eclipse.png. Alright, type in our sudo password. And then what we're going to do is we are going to save this text document with this information as eclipse.desktop. There you go. See, it's got a nice Eclipse icon because it knows where to look for it. Now, the last thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to move this icon into user share applications. So let's do that. Sudo move home Ryan desktop eclipse.desktop to user share applications. Once again, make sure that you have that slash at the end. And then from there, we should be able to go into our menu and look for Eclipse. Click on Run Eclipse, and there it is. You can pin that to your dock. now you have an easy to use launcher, and you have set up your Java development kit and the Eclipse IDE. Thanks for watching, and I hope this helped.